Welcome, everybody, to Mud Flood was Armageddon. The Mud Flood was the Armageddon. Don't let them tell you anything else unless they're willing to debate you in a fair and honest way. I've been saying that for a long time. I started with a website dreamed up in 2016, established in 2017, called Flat Earth Nation Golden Age Past. I've been teaching the pretimillennial, that's the millennium is over, for 9 years. And going to go into tonight the thing about China, Japan. They're still fighting the war. This yin carry trade that started on Monday with, an economic slide was their way to me of sending the message. Did you know this was the anniversary of the second dropping of what they called was the atomic bomb? They don't talk about that very much, do they? This is the anniversary of supposedly the greatest technology, the dark matter, quantum physics. Schrodinger's cat has to be dead and alive at the same time until you look. It's all a lie, and I am set to add to the information that we got them. We know it. We're waiting. Some highs and some lows along the way. I think we start by showing this picture that I'm going to be looking at a few videos, and we got this whole I am not giving medical advice. I'm not giving financial advice. I'm giving my religious opinions. Wonder what's after that. We never look. I got that one set up all the time. Hey, there's Pergamon. Hey, look, this is what they call a tree ring in petrified wood, but it's not. It's Ostion. Star Force. I got to look at my pictures more often. I got some good ones. I'm telling you, man. And I remember I just about to say, I usually remember where I get them and what they're about. What's this all about? I don't remember screen sharing that. If I talked about that, anybody remembers?
Welcome, everybody, to a special edition of Mud.
Oh, this is saved. This is my desktop. Those are saved for a reason. They're Marcella Oblin and Espanol. She's saying hello, and I'm saying hello. Check this out. This was part of the itching ears thing. This is like, oh my goodness, you've given my audience something else to sell books with, talk about itchy ears, and all you needed to do was just add to scripture by saying these other books like Ezra 2 or whatever they're talking about are scripture now. In case you don't know, Break the Hostility, 1971. He's one of the men that poisoned Tommy from Texas's mind, along with Noah Church, when they decided they had some better ideas and they needed to leave El and Paco behind. So far, even though I think Break the Hostility, it has under 1,000 subscribers, he's still been on JT Loves JC, and now he's on Understanding Conspiracy, and he's blowing his mind. And at the end of this 2-hour show, they're going, thank you, brother. Thank you, brother. So, his position. I'm going to back it up here and maybe we'll catch it. Let's. Oh, I wanted to read the quote from Ashley, his wife now. She's the one that introduced Jason here to Tommy. And so at this point in the conversation, she adds, because Jesus is God and God himself had to shed his blood for Satan and the fallen to be defeated. He had to shed his blood for Satan and the fallen to be defeated. I assume Satan had to be defeated, and Satan had to set, and the fallen angels, and Jesus had to shed his blood to save this. I had not heard that one.
This cathedral-style complex
Absolutely.
melted into a husk, like this melted pile of itself, like wax, you know.
Let's
And
get
there's
him
a lot
putting
of
on his glasses.
wax-looking direction, and
Try to
obviously you
look-
have to be holy to even be in that place. You can't enter unless you're holy, or vice versa. That place makes you holy. I don't know if it's the chicken or the egg situation, or the saint before the Jerusalem situation. But you're saying once that kingdom was established in a sense and happened, Satan was bound for 1,000 years. The veil was put over the kingdom, and the people surrounding it were left to their own devices without Satan kind of getting in the way anymore. And did the whole earth know Christ was here by that point? Were they very well aware of it? Was it all like well established? Is that when, let's say, the early church fathers began, the churches began to be built? So were they aware of it?
Now, anybody reading and quoting the early church fathers don't reference the Armageddon in the first century. They think Jesus didn't come back the way he promised. They're writing to people, don't go to the early church fathers.
This was going on. Well, how do you interpret these moments, the early moments of when it first went down? And then we'll get to the year 2000 at the end of all this. We'll lead up to that.
Okay. Well, it's interesting, right? Because at some point, everybody knew the Earth was flat, but then through propaganda and through the colleges and things like that, and teaching and schools and stuff like that, all of a sudden the Earth's not flat anymore and it's round, right? Well, in the same way, I think that's how.
Okay. It was what about Copernicus and Galileo? They knew it was flat, but the Roman Catholics, the Jesuits, the Rosicrucians, which led to the John Birch Society, the Theosophists, they didn't have anything to do with that. It all came around recently with the colleges were.
Things got turned from being, from people understanding a millennial reign time period to, things started shifting towards, we're waiting for the tribulation to happen. Now, there's a lot of theories on that. The thing of it is one of the things that I kind of see is that, first of all, like, I believe that there were tiers of people that make their abode in the Lord's.
Okay, there's two tiers of things, and I want to kind of speed this up so to get to the point of where this is the argument, and you see it going around. Other people are, gleaming onto it, and Jason Hicks, he brought it to the table.
Land, and I think that there's a certain tier of people that actually get to remain in New Jerusalem continually.
Timeline and narrative?
No, it absolutely.
Catching up, buffering. Your video is buffering. Ridiculously long buffering. What is up, YouTube? I know I've got the stream going.
Weren't bound.
Maybe that's on their end.
We're still working their principalities over nations on Earth who were still on board with Satan's agenda, albeit not necessarily the big chief's not there anymore commanding them, but they all knew what their orders were. Were they still doing the same thing, creating new religions, creating rebellion, fighting the kingdom at any step they could? I'm just throwing that out there, but does that make any sense in your timeline and narrative?
No, it absolutely does, because in Revelation chapter 22, in verse 12, it says, so this is Revelation 22. Now we're talking about the tree of life. We're talking, we just talked about, New Jerusalem descending in chapter 21 and 22. We're talking about the tree of life, and we're talking about, all the good things are going to happen, there in the Lord's land. But then it's very interesting. So in verse 12, it starts, "Behold, I am coming soon, bringing my recompense with me to repay each one for what he has done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end. Blessed are those who wash their robes, so that they may have the right to the tree of life, and that they may enter the city is New Jerusalem, by the gates." And then it says this, "Outside are the dogs and the sorcerers and the sexually immoral and the murderers and idolaters and everyone who loves and practices falsehood." So if, because a lot of people, have the understanding that, they think that the millennial, or that New Jerusalem doesn't actually appear on earth until.
Okay. Now, Jason has heard this explanation I'm going to show you, because this is his one thing. And he admits in the show, he goes, look, this is my theory, and I want people to get on board with it, because it's important to him that people, he wants to contribute to the party. Blessed are those who wash their robes. Now, okay, good. What they never address is the fact that this is all vision. These words are trustworthy. He's still in the vision. He said to me, these words are trustworthy and I'm coming soon. Verse 8 starts, prophecy over. Now John is talking to the people that he addressed the letter to. Hi, I'm John on the island of Patmos. And now he's going, I'm John. I'm the one who heard the above vision and saw those things in the above. And when I heard them, I fell down on my feet. And he said, don't do it, Behold, it was Jesus, like in chapter 1, bringing him the word. And he's saying, you're writing this letter to people that were alive before 70 AD. Yes, they were being judged because they chose Barabbas, and they were dogs, sorcerers, sexually immoral, murderers, and idolaters. They loved practicing falsehood. That's why Jesus said, I, John, am sending you these messages to these 7 churches, and then after this, the other things. But to the people alive then that were receiving this letter of revelation that was written to them, everything is after the great white throne. That's when the New Jerusalem comes down. It's not already here. We're not listening to some convoluted idea of now we're in some crazy thing. Oh my goodness. Off-grid John, you have been so busy and with the dog and with the law and with everything else. Anyway, it's good to see you, my man. Sergio, I'm going to be getting to Victoria. It is so good to see you. I know that some of you have heard this, but we're going to be tying in new things about this to Japan and how it's changing the world. I'm going to wrap up here with Jason because I can see
after the white throne judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the white throne judgment is the eradication of all sin and all evil in all the world for all time, for everlasting.
So he's assuming, because he does not understand after 4 years of me explaining it to him, that the prophecy is over. And now the same Jesus is confirming it as in chapter 1. I'm John. I'm writing this message. Jesus is basically telling it to me, because there were people that needed to hear it, because outside for them were dogs and murderers. And yet he's insisting on somehow we've experienced the millennial reign, the short season, the the great white throne of judgment. The New Jerusalem has already descended, and for some reason, in a little while, the rest of the veil will be lifted to Jason, and he'll be able to share it with authors.
So it's done. So then if we're seeing here that these people have, let their robes be clean, and that so that they can enter the gates, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then outside are the dogs and the sorcerers, sexually immoral and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's something else going on here. So this
Yeah.
obviously has to be an end of the tribulation prophecy,
Mm-hmm.
and that New Jerusalem came down. And that
I've noticed, and like we discussed there, as I was born again in 2014, relatively new. I'm 32 now, so I've been at it since I was about 24-ish, 20. I can't remember. I think I was 24 at the time. And I wasn't raised in a church, but I found it odd that people were kind of obsessing over this the tribulation event coming, which would, be a horrible time to live through. And it's people like willing it on the earth. But I did notice through my early research, and I was probably there with you and many others, that it's kind of, we're waiting for that to solve everything.
Okay, somebody, in reality, he should be trying to correct him and going like, "Oh, Jason, this is so easy. Let me help you." Instead, later on, he goes, "The audience loves this topic."
Once tribulation begins and it's gone through, perfection forever and eternity forever
It's
and
all
ever and
done.
ever. And that's
Yeah.
and again, it took me, when I first heard these ideas and theories, to actually read it and go, wait a minute, a 1,000-year reign, a little season, and then Great White Throne, then a new heaven and earth. It's kind of why, because I think a lot of people haven't actually read the book. They've just listened to what the person behind the pulpit has told them about the book, and they've been told.
Right. And let me tell you that for the rest of the world, it seems like in the flat earth, the book of Revelation is not enough. The Bible as a book, our book, scripture alone, the Bible, is not enough. And you'll find out that Ezra is only the beginning.
Over and over and over again. It's kind of, he comes with the new heaven and earth after tribulation, and they kind of breeze over this time period, a specific period of time that has a beginning and an end, and he says words like 1,000 years, and then when the 1,000 years has ended, then Satan is let loose for a short time.
And then there's the reaping. Everybody that was alive during that 1,000 years is reaped, and there's a fresh start. Jason kind of gets there. I think this last few minutes, Paul doesn't really understand what he's saying, but he's wanting to, he's theorizing.
It's another time period with a beginning and an end. It's kind of, that doesn't seem pretty imminent to me, just because tribulations happen, everything's suddenly perfect forever and ever. I think that's what people have confused. They think the millennial kingdom is
that's how greatly the population was decreased upon all the earth. And then, not to mention, if you throw in the Pangea theory, right, where what I think I'm understanding is that at the end of the tribulation with the great earthquake, that's when the Lord kind of, being the Lord's land in the center, right, in the center of the navel of the earth, and just, in my opinion,
And so this is going towards the Mercator Earth map, and that God is waiting up there at the mountain of the Mercator Center Earth map, and we should trust that map. Come on, you buffering slow thing, you. I got other tabs to get on. I hope you're not this slow all night.
If we were 2,000 years removed from Christ, we'd be in a way worse. I mean, we're in a bad state right now, but it would be everybody would die. Everybody would die. Yeah. I
agree with you a lot with. I don't know. Again, I prefer to the timeline as like the Gordian knot. It's like this big ball of knots that nobody can unfurl. It's just impossible.
I untied it last year.
And they're burying them in the valley of Haman God, which is the valley of the traveler, right? So they're burying bodies, bones or whatever. I think it's bone.
God bless.
Thanks, brother.
Revelation 22, verse 16, Jesus, I have sent my angel to testify to you about these things for the churches. Remember this in chapter 1? Why did he do it? Why did he do it? It was for the churches, those churches that got their letters, and he's just verifying who he is. That, I'm Jesus. I'm the bright morning star. Come quickly. If you've heard the words of these prophecies, there's murderers and people and wolves in sheep clothing trying to deceive you. What is hard about that? There. Have I beat that dead horse? I gave my disclaimer.
And down because interest rates are going up? The answer is no. The other thing is that quite a lot of your activities, and particularly since the 1980s, have been increasing in the financial sphere. So you've got a lot of exposure to financial assets. Rising interest rates, what does it do to their values? So that's another area which you're probably going to try and cut back on. So this is a time to be very nervous. And if you were caught, let us say, with COVID, and of course, COVID completely unexpected. What happened? Everybody, their sales stopped, their costs continued, their borrowing increased. So, you suddenly find that you are over-leveraged in a market which suddenly is beginning to decline. Now that, for a banker, is a frightening position to be in. So what do you do as a director of the bank? You want to cut back as much as you can. And the thing that was interesting, I can't remember whether this came up the last time we spoke, but
Pretty sure these are expensive commercials to make. Because I think they pay for all these clips. That's why these guys are trying to be, they got to watch out for their copyright. So that's why I'm going to be showing myself here a little bit, because, it's like I'm doing the commentary and they're so picky.
Jamie Dimon, he said that 2 weeks ago, I likened the economy to being in a storm. I've upgraded that now. As far as I'm concerned, we are in a hurricane. Now that is the most senior commercial banker in the world.
Well, this is one way that they don't talk about, the anniversary. This would have been 2 days ago. Wouldn't that have been, was it the 3rd? August 3rd, when they supposedly fake dropped the first atomic weapon. Did you notice on that thumbnail? I'm going to do that now. I'm going to take a break. Check out my pictures for, I do these screen cap things. Not screen cap. Yeah, screen capture. Here's one. Huh. Canada, and especially the Hudson Bay, has less gravity, whatever that means, than the rest of the Earth. Huh, that's weird, right? It's got a lot of traction out of that hotel, too. Let's see here. Now, did you know Japan reacted angrily on Tuesday? But full disclosure, this is from 2020. I don't think I got the date on it. Russia and Japan have still not formally ended World War II hostilities. Did you know that? Like the United States, we still have an armistice in World War I. We still have an armistice in the Korean War. These things are not like they surrendered, we conquered them. Well, apparently, Russia and Japan have still not formally ended their World War II hostilities. And I think Russia is going to be taught a lesson by Japan, like the United States is, that they've laid low. So did China. For a century, they were considered, just somebody to make cell phones and things like that. Times are changing. I wanted, and when did they announce that, Japan's going to quit? Well, it's more than a week after they supposedly fake dropped the fake second atomic bomb that's made with fake math, with fake quantum physics, by the fake AI computer, who it's the best they could do for the mafias who took over the world. On the same day, allegedly, these people, they're, the 1,196 on the USS Indianapolis were fed to the sharks. And they were the ones who delivered the bomb. Maybe they wouldn't be able to keep a secret. Like, going, whoa, what bomb? What was this one? How many are there? Well, this South Sea Company, it seems like our bubble is almost exactly like it was about 300 years ago when Satan was getting loosed. And this is 1719, 1720. Huh. They're out of money. They just got to print more. Wonder what this was about. Huh. Let's just get back to where I was. Hey, this is that guy that said, take your money out of the bank, that showed those cool charts.
And you will feel very, very exposed. And furthermore, where you have counterparty risk to the Eurozone and the Japanese financial markets, you will know that your counterparties in those markets are even more highly leveraged than you are.
Leverage.
It is an average of the G-SIBs average in the Eurozone is around about 20 times. The
At night, they'd like to drink a cold beverage. Leverage.
average in Japan is around about 21, 22 times. So, I mean, it's just incredible, the leverage in these foreign banks. And that's where the failure is likely to come from first. So what do? I mean, when it comes to everything, you just want to just batten down the hatches and to hell with it. If you're going to, just get your loans in as much as you can, cut your deposit base as much as you can, reduce that ratio of balance sheet and
John Law.
financial system.
We've done shows, whole 2-hour shows about John Law.
I've said this so many times until I'm blue in the face. The prime example of this was John Law in 1720 France, when he printed credit in order to buy shares, support shares in his Mississippi venture. And it got to the stage where it no longer began to work. The shares sank despite that. But what happened was that he destroyed the currency in the process. And we have a similar situation today where the central banks will try and keep the whole of the financial system going, which basically is not just keeping the banks open for business, but also stopping financial assets from sliding in value. And now that's going to require enough money printing.
That's how you sample a video, just trying to make a point. Hey, this is just an interruption on a video. The man who's gone away from the stones, the Lord brought him back today or yesterday for a video that's like, hopefully this is a good sign that, Mike, it's the heartstones crying out, and it always has been. Am I correct, RJ, or not? If RJ is at a family reunion tonight.
Just sitting there in the middle of the path. Taper it in, indentation at the top. And there you go. What are the odds?
100%. 100%. Remember when it was all organs all the time before it got too nervous for Mike to realize, oh my goodness, this means it could be mammals. It could be that we're living stones.
That literally burned the rest of the body away, but for some bizarre reason left the organs intact. Bone I could understand, but organs? Soft tissue? It made no sense. Then one day, while looking at anatomy pictures, I came across this image and understood. All of the organs.
RJ and I showed him those images, and we talked on the phone and explained to him the helical heart, the vortexes, the helix, and the analemas. And we have the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses in this audience here tonight.
In the body are wrapped in their own individual sacs of fatty tissue called
We
fascia.
taught you this, Mike, and you know it.
This tough layer protects the organs from impact and keeps them in their own individual ecosystems. The layer surrounding the heart, known as the pericardium, is particularly strong. Each of the organs is attached within the chest and abdominal cavities, separated by fascia and floating in liquid. That was when the light bulb turned on in my head. I thought of the traumatic transformation that occurs when boiling an egg.
Do you see how willing they are to lie to take the glory from God? Because this is something that God made the stones cry out because of vision, where we had to say everything he said was true. Well, then how could the stones cry out? How could John the Baptist tell them, these stones could have descendants of Abraham? And we had to. Well, the Lord showed us through Victor Schauberger, Vortex, and my fortune that I had to spend.
And minerals outside of the body would then complete the process. You can see in this picture that most of the pericardium is still intact, and where it's chipped or worn away, the fleshy heart muscle is revealed. It seemed like a good theory, but I still didn't understand why I wasn't finding long bones, skulls, pelvises, etc.
You don't know how.
After all, the bones were already hard to begin with. Why wouldn't they have also been preserved?
They were.
It was in conversation with my friend Nathan, whose introduction to pyroclastic flows I showed in my last video, that the bone question was finally answered for me. I had just finished sharing my pressure-cooked boiled organ theory with him, and then he asked me if I had ever made bone broth. Being a lifelong vegetarian, I'd never had a reason to cook bones in a crock pot, so I was completely unaware of findings. And you can see in here, look at this. This is literally turned to quartz crystal inside the brain. I believe that the reason...
These are done with the glittering sword. Mike is close on... He didn't quite comprehend, and he doesn't want to tie it to the Bible.
Petrified brain with quartz crystal. Corpus callosum. The brain is made almost entirely of fat. This is the corpus callosum.
Your brain swims in cholesterol, but I'm not a doctor. Somebody else wanted to write a book. He's a preterist, you can tell by his notes. He doesn't want to mention it, but he's got an idea too. Hey, something's happening in this world. I'm going to jump on board. I wrote a book.
And then for those of you that are going to the conference, I'm actually going to, again, Lord willing, working out the details on this, but I'm going to try to send a number of books ahead to that conference, and there are going to be a couple tables out there where people can...
Everybody better get a cottage industry, because that's the way the world's going. I mean, we got to do something for the money. What is this? What is a carry trade? And how did a super tiny rate hike from Japan trigger this global sell-off? Seemingly small move by the Bank of Japan, who is still technically at war with Russia. We're technically at war with Korea, and whoever's the armistice, everybody in World War I, we're still at war. Where it's a armistice. We'll get more to this carry thing. I wanted to find out here, whatever happened here, undo, delete, undo. That means delete, undo, delete. Get get rid of this, undo it. This part that said that return or cost of holding an asset, overriding Wikipedia, Wikidata description, return or cost of holding an asset, undo that. These are all fairly recent, and the last one was today, referencing Mrs. Wannabe, and I know Watanabe, and see, I'm hitting the back button, or I'll do it like this, back. So I was on what is a carry, what is an investment. They've adjusted that page as of yesterday, taking away the Watanabe. Watanabe, also known as kimono trader, in your mind, you might best associate them with the GameStop crew from Reddit. Do you remember the GameStop crew that they went like, hey, we can catch these people and sell them short? It looks as if Japan has been planning this since the 1960s. And now they're pulling the trigger, and like they almost won World War II, if Britain, Russia, Germany, and the United States and Australia didn't gang up on them, they would have won. Playing the game of Risk, and it was eugenics risk. They were playing to say, who's number one? And I hate to say it, but it's kind of proof that nobody hates the blacks more than the Japanese. Mrs. Watanabe. What is the carry? Arbitrage. Carry trade refers to currency carry trade. Investors borrow low-yielding currencies, the yen, and Japan was loaning money at 0.001% up to 0.01. Practically free money. So for 30 years, the people who like to snort cocaine and buy $1,000 bottles of champagne and cognac, expensive brandies, I'm sure, whatever, they would buy this money and then park it in places where they would get 5%. And that's free money. And so all of the countries just kept going to that well. Well, the wannabes, the Watanabes, the game stoppers dipped their finger in 2007 and they said, well, let's dump $1 trillion on a trend. And they started that bank run. And well, you know what happened in 2008, right? That 2008 was largely because of the yen, and the BRICS and all the other ones they're in on buying the Japanese yen too. Japanese has them Japan, not Japanese. Japanese have them by the short hairs, is what I was going to say. There, I said it. So but it's the USA that definitely is going to take the brunt of this. I'm going to, how about this? I'm really moving on, right? I'm going fast. Oh man, rabbit trail. What is this anything? How can they even say scientists can't explain it with a straight face? Ground control's a major reality. The paradox was first identified in 1960 because everything's brand new in 1958 unless your parents were in the insane asylum. Something happened weird. Convection drags the Earth's continental plates down? Does it drag them down, doo down? Is that Hillary? Man, when Donovan, and I've admitted unashamedly when I was young, I had an affair with Donovan's maid when I was living in Yucca Valley. Had fallen in love with I don't know if you ever heard of this song called "If You're Going to San Francisco, Wear Flowers in Your Hair." Scott McKenzie. I fell in love with his ex-wife when I was 19, and we were living there. But he did that song, "Call It Mellow Yellow." That's right, Slick. But that's not how you do it. Anyway, no, there's no gravity. Rabbit trailed you. Hudson Bay has low gravity. Why? And here they just give you a bunch of stupid reasons, but then they were like, in some places, it's like half the gravity. So that's half of the density? Even that's weird. That's weird. Maybe that's where the camp of the saints is. Okay. Japan during World War II, what happened? They were the part of, it was a war of eugenics. Still, they didn't, still led to Vietnam. French goes like, we're tired of fighting in Vietnam. You want to do it? Yeah, we'll do it. The surrender of Japan could happen on many different dates. Some say August 15th. Some say the actual signature on September 2nd. Some, like me, say it never ended. I just found out it's an armistice. So anyway, when did the World War II begin? Did World War I ever really end? Invaded and conquered Manchuria in 1933. Second Sino-Japan. Japan was kicking Russia's ass, kicking China's ass. And it took the big five. Let's throw Canada in there. I'm sure they helped contribute too. You're part of the big six now, Canada. Not really, though. So much for trying to be nice. Anyway, look it up. This is all very fun, huh? Chiang Kai-shek, because he was the part of the big four. Who were the big four? Well, Winston Churchill. You've heard of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, Joe Stalin. But Chiang Kai-shek, China was a big part of it. They were our ally. But after, the great Six Nations knocked off Japan, Chiang Kai-shek, I guess, squandered all the goodwill and money by 1949. So the people of China kicked him onto Formosa, which is the modern Taiwan, because he spent all the money. And then Japan's Asia for the Asians, Okay, you're still fighting World War II, you big trickers. What is this? Soviet invasion of Manchuria, justifications, captured almost 700,000 Japanese troops. Anyway, this was the major blow that made Japan realize we cannot win. And they're firebombing our cities like they did Dresden. Because if you look at Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and then Kyoto and Tokyo, you will see they all look the same. They've been burned down. Dooby-doo, down, down. And then they built, that looks like a new star fort, not a rebuilt star fort. What a long article. Hey, I rode on those boats at the Wisconsin Dales. Ready? Japan was cutting people's heads off left and right. That's what they say. It was a eugenics war, and Japan did not seem afraid of anyone. Look at those short ponies. The Soviet-Japanese War. Which one? Well, not the border conflicts in the 1930s. For the 1904-1905 war, that's the Russian Empire, and that was another war. Japan beat their ass. Russo-Japanese War, another victory for the underdogs of history, the winners of the eugenic war. The dynamite came in small packages. Okay, I know that there's some tall Japanese, but I'm going on the average and the stereotype that you're, you know, in the United States, average person, is about 5'6", and I don't think that's the average height in Japan. We go from like 5'6" to 6 foot is our average. What's your 6 inch average? And plus, we got a bunch of Somalis living here. I'm just kidding. Nobody unconditionally surrendered. We got wars, Tehran conferences, 1943. They were already planning to divide up. Remember, this is all faked by an AI computer to put some history together. Yeah, they did ship people here, there, and do the other things, but it basically is tying up loose ends, explaining away Trans-Siberian railways, explaining away how buildings, whether they're still in the condition of Armageddon or being destroyed, or whether they've been fixed up in the 1,000-year reign, whatever level it is, the Bible explains. Every civilization says there's ruins of the ancients around we cannot explain. But that's not as big as, the Soviet invasion of Manchuria, when the great 6 nations of the world were going to take out China. Manchuria, I mean. Japan was in China. And I don't have time to get in on how all of this led to the John Birch Society. The betrayal of the communists over the capitalist Chiang Kai-shek. The FBI and the CIA are still fighting over that today. But basically, here's Manchuria, this area where all the arrows are pointing. And it did come down to, they planned it out. And here's another busy map of it. Japan, you do not have a chance. And this was their number 1 army. Now, the timing of it, although the commencement of the invasion fell between the American fake atomic bombings on the 6th and the 9th, only hours before Nagasaki, the timing of the invasion had been planned since Yalta in 1943. Well, they left out that was in 1943. So, yeah, they did that in Yalta. And so it came down to the minute at exactly 11 p.m. The Soviet foreign minister informed Japan, we just declared war on you. And they're going like, wait a minute, what the hell? You're using Moscow's time zone instead of the Manchurian time zone? We were expecting you in a couple more hours. Well, take that, so that's probably why it's an armistice. There's your proof, that Indianapolis, that's quite a story. No, I went over these Bible verses the other day. Or did I? Did I talk about how God provided himself as a sacrifice? When people talk about, some people don't like this verse. Abraham said, God will provide for himself the lamb for a burnt offering, my son. I always like to remind people that when you look at this, like look at this word here. the lamb to himself. Okay. So if I wanted to click that, like if I click this, it takes me to the word. Now I'll click this. Again, they don't know. They're just trying to make it hard, but don't worry. You can click it. You can do a right click highlight and search it on its own. And then you'll realize it is that same word, right? I'm not, why would I lie to you? I'm not. But it's a part of a much bigger word. $201 times. We're looking at the 37, I believe, Labata. Alone, apart, by itself. He alone, he himself. So what I'm trying to, what I always try to show here, you know, people that ignore the Trinity on everything, is that God was providing himself as the Lamb. The New International could be close. He's not going to provide a sheep. He will provide himself. God will provide himself as a lamb. He, you know, he made the sacrifice. And the gospel was, and Abraham believed, and it was counted as righteousness. Here's another one I like. Abraham believed the Lord, and it was credited to him for righteousness. So shall your offspring be like the stars. Hebrews 9:25. Nor did he enter heaven to offer himself again and again, as the high priest enters the most holy place every year with blood that is not his own. Otherwise, Christ would have had to suffer repeatedly since the foundation of the world. But now he has appeared once for all at the end of the ages to do away with sin by the sacrifice of himself. There's your Old Testament and your New Testament confirmation. If you're into that kind of thing, because I am into that kind of thing. I had it already pulled up. Well, we know what I was going for. So, man, this is where I pulled that muscle. I've been studying these muscles, and I've really determined to get them stronger. And then you can protect your thyroid better. I am so happy that since, you know, the Lord, you know, just keeps it on my mind to not just be strong, but like to try to be super strong, you know, because otherwise I think I could have died the other day. These nerves, they're the weirdest thing. And they've been playing games with me, reminding me how important they are, because they've been playing games, you know, like you get those little tweaks and I don't know. Have you ever been afraid to sneeze and kind of wait till you sneak up on it and come back? Oh, we finally get it to pop, and I go, okay. Then you know, okay, that I really was hurt. That one hurt. So tired of trying to talk about herbicides and getting people. I know. But I've found that, you know, just bend down every now and then and pull a weed and just say, you know, that one won't need glyphosate.
Free speech. There's no doubt that I'm being targeted because of statements I've made about U.S. policy in Ukraine. I'm being targeted because I have made an effort to try and improve relations between the United States and Russia, to try to bring about arms control, to bring about peace. Apparently somebody in the US government takes umbrage at this, so they executed a search warrant. The FBI was extraordinarily professional. I have no complaints against the personnel that did this. I do have complaints against the personnel that caused this to happen. This has a chilling impact on free speech. The idea that you have a free speech right in America when you execute it in a manner that the US government takes exception to, and they launch a search warrant, that is an intimidation factor. I can say that I am not intimidated.
Yeah, he got his house searched. But I am surprised for a man that's been in the news since the wall, the Berlin Wall fell down, and he was the Russian, he was the inspector. I guess I thought he'd be able to afford a landscaper, and I mean, this is kind of like a house I lived in. I'm just shocked. I thought that people on TV were richer. Anyway, so that basically, I just wanted to give you the lowdown on what's happening in the economy. They will be plugging it, fixing it, letting it work itself out like that. But that's the trigger. I still think Japan is, and when I say Japan, I mean their mafia. This is a war of the mafias. Your vote doesn't count. It never has, and it's not going to. So I don't really see any questions, but if you do have any comments and everything like that, you know what to do. Yeah, I know, Marcella, it's been a long time, and I just think that the longer that he keeps going, like not giving the glory to God, is a dangerous thing. Hey, I'm not worried about me. I'm worried, we know what's coming for people that are going to be Simon the Magician types. How can I make money off this? Anyway, thank you all so much. It's a flat earth nation because the mud flood was Armageddon. You know me and my friends, we're never going to tell you anything else. Why would we? We're one called, two chosen, three trying to be faithful until the end. And that includes having your best interest at heart. Amen. Hallelujah. Aho. Aloha. Arrivederci. Ciao. Sayonara. Auf Wiedersehen. Nakame.